Hi, my name is Kofi Jones here for Zeitgeist Entertainment Magazine, ZGEMag.com. We're at FLOW HQ for the AnimeKon 2018 convention. I'm joined today with, I don't want to get your first name wrong,
Oh, you better not.
Mr. Bennett. Manu Bennett. Hi, man. Nice to meet you. Um, in your roles, you tend to play like a type of fantasy character. Is never like you're not a Wall Street guy. Is there anything that draws you towards those particular roles?
The color of my skin.
The color of your skin.
I don't know. I always seem to play the guy opposite the other guy. And
Yeah.
the lead guys. Usually there's a stereotype. Americanization of lead characters. I always seem to get the second guy. Should I be saying this on tape?
A bit too late.
But no. It's good. I don't mind playing this character because the character's always the guy who's got flaws and has stuff that makes, as far as I'm concerned, from an acting perspective, more dramatic choices.
Okay.
I don't have to be the one who has the clean path and has to be the righteous character all the time. But this is stereotype again. It's kind of like. I can't tell you how many times I play opposite, the blonde-haired guy with blue eyes, and his path in a series is the correct path, and then I'm the second guy, with tan skin who might, chase his girlfriend or do something. This is stereotype, and to be honest, I've kind of come to a point where I'm looking for choices now in my career anyway that are more about sharing the idea of story in a more culturally correct sense.
Okay.
And I think here in Barbados you might understand what I'm talking about. It is high in time that the cultural characters are represented.
I agree.
Right across the globe. I think Black Panther was a step in the right direction. Even though it's sort of a little bit. But it's a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
Basically, in my country, we're looking at making a Maori version of Vikings. So that would be about the history of the Maori people. And does that answer that question?
A bit. On the topic of your roles, a lot of where we know you from is things like The Hobbit, Arrow, Spartacus, of course. Is there a reason that you think you're so popular in the pop culture sphere? Like, I mean, everything you do is just...
Well, I mean, it's not really me personally. It's the projects. The projects themselves have become popular culture.
But I mean,
and big audience stuff. So when you've got these international Comic Cons and things like that are really based on modern mythology stories that have resonated on the screen. I'm lucky that Spartacus resonated on the screen.
So you wouldn't say you have a golden touch? It's not necessarily just you.
Oh, it's not me, brother. It's I'm like the cow on the carton of milk, and that says this is good milk. But it's more than that. I mean, as an actor, you have to look to give signals through the screen. My life as an actor didn't begin as somebody who just wanted to get famous or anything like that. I lost my mother and brother in 2 car accidents when I was 15 and 16 years old, and the arts was a way for me to not self-destruct.
Help express yourself.
And then when I got the role of Spartacus, Crixus in Spartacus, Crixus had so much to deal with, in the drama that I could give those elements, the elements of grief and the elements of loss, of holding a brother in your arms and dying. I mean, that happened to me literally in real life. I held my brother as he passed away.
Wow.
So when it came to performance, when it came to grit performance, I think as an actor I know how to do that honestly. But then again, in my own career as a sports person or stuff like this, I was, my father trained me to be a national athlete, winning the hurdles and certain things like that.
You're an athlete as well.
Yeah, so but through that element of my life, I learned victory, and training hard to get to those victories, So it was like Crixus in the arena, shall I begin? I was there on the starting line.
Yeah, you really lived this though.
But then when the gladiator was dying next to me, I knew that element of life as well. So, I give it all to the art, I give it all through that camera and the relationships that I have with my fans. And this is what I find most interesting is that, when I meet them, they're moved emotionally, and they say Crixus, the journey of Crixus, I cried when you died and stuff like that, because I think by digging deep as an actor, as myself personally, into my own experiences in life, I can bring that. That's what I try as an artist. I can bring that to the screen.
Surface, yeah.
And it's sometimes it's not easy. Sometimes I have to relive those moments to give them, but in sharing them with my audience, it shares the real signal. The true feeling. Of loss or of victory. And I think in my roles, there's been variations of that are the same with Crixus or with Slade Wilson. I don't know about Azog. Azog was just a big energy thing, but having played a champion gladiator at the time who was, and they wanted some fighting technique with Azog as well. They gave me this giant hammer, and instead of just doing like, I said, Peter Jackson, I said, Peter, can I try to swing around like this giant animal? Can he do a full rotation with this? I've been doing that with Spartacus, and so I brought something to that role that added value.
So on the topic of Crixus from Spartacus, early up in your career, you worked with Lucy Lawless in an episode of Xena where you played Mark Anthony.
Yeah, the only reason, how I got Crixus in Spartacus, originally the American casting people weren't going to offer me the role.
They weren't.
No, they wanted to get an American. They wanted to get somebody who was more well known. They thought that the series needed some recognized faces, something. And it was only because of the producer, Rob Tappert, because I'd worked with Rob in Xena, Warrior Princess. I played Mark Antony 10 years beforehand. And Rob, being the producer of this Spartacus series, said to them, "Look, there's a local actor, Manu Bennett. I know he puts a lot of, effort into his fight scenes and stuff like that, and you might want to take a look at him." So they did, and even then, I don't think the Americans were going to sign off on me playing the role, but Rob really went in there and sort of pushed for me. Yeah. And of course, in the episode of Xena that I did, I had a romance story as well with Lucy Lawless playing Mark Antony. Lucy was, as Xena was pretending to be Cleopatra, and so her and I had done a couple of scenes, and I think they took a look at those scenes and they saw that the chemistry had worked 10 years beforehand, so they kind of took the shot and ended up the role.
Is there any difference working with Lucy 10 years prior to working with her in Spartacus?
No, Lucy's just she's a great actress. I believe that coming from New Zealand rather than coming from America is just sort of like I think she's been she would have been great in the Alien movies or something like that, Sigourney Weaverish kind of strong female sort of character. She's such a great actress. I'd like to work with her again, actually. There's a few projects that we're trying to sort of get going in New Zealand, and I'm hoping that Lucy will helm some of those, and might get cross paths with her again. But in Spartacus, she was like playing chess.
Like playing chess?
You go into a scene with Lucy Lawless, and she just goes, and you're in her sights.
Yeah.
And you kind of have to dodge it to own any part of the scene. So playing Crixus, I used to not look at her.
Wow.
I used to stare at the wall over her shoulder, and then she'd be looking at me going like, "Look at me, Manu, I'm gonna get you into my bed, Crixus. I'm gonna control you." And I'd in order to give Crixus some integrity or some not to be attacked by that, I would look over her shoulder and I'd say, "Yes, Domina." And then the whole thing was that as a slave, if I was out of my chains, I would kill her.
Yeah,
she was my oppressor, and so it was always this very, very delicate, dangerous tension that was being played in every scene, and just watching her working her thing. It was really wonderful. It was some of my most memorable acting moments because she's a great timing actor. And really, it's each move at a time. And when you're working as an actor, when you have to work off somebody else's energy, which should be the case all the time, it isn't all the time because most people are sort of wondering how they're chin angles looking on camera sometimes. But but with Lucy, she's just in the zone, just looking at you, and you know when you play off that, feed off that, it makes for really dynamic scenes.
Okay, so you were an actor and athlete, but I also read that you were a ballet dancer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you still dance?
Oh, you know what? I don't dance anymore, but I think that what I got from dance, I did break dancing, ballet. I was the partner in pas de deux to a girl who went on to be in the Australian Ballet Company.
Hmm.
And as far as my sports was concerned, I was actually meant to go to the Australian trials for the Australian schoolboys rugby union team and try out for that team. And that weekend, there was a performance of Swan Lake, and I ended up having to do Swan Lake
Instead of the trials.
rather than trying out for the Australian rugby union team. Yeah. So it was a real Billy Elliot.
That's a big choice though. Like I mean, in terms of rugby team, ballet,
Yeah.
that's a huge difference.
Yeah, but but then again, when I reflected on terms of how a role like Spartacus, enabled me to use all of my athleticism and then also all of that stuff that happened in my life emotionally.
Yeah.
Then that was really the perfect role. It's the perfect story.
And has your dance experience helped with your fight choreography?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, all the stunt coordinators and all that always were like, you pick it up straight away. So a lot of the times we'd just rehearse a fight scene and then, I would be able to go onto the set and perform it straight away. Whereas some people who haven't had that movement, skill training would take days just to get their bodies to
move that way,
to respond, But yeah, definitely if you're a up and coming actor, movement is a great way to enhance any scene. There's a lot of flat-footed actors, and usually the camera has to try to create the movement in the scene if that actor's on screen. Whereas when I get on there, I move around a lot, and so they're kind of like they just it's an asset. Yeah,
Okay.
definitely. Yeah.
All right. What would you say is your favorite role that you've played?
It's interesting because I mean, sequentially, I'm really happy with the path. The people that I've gotten to work with, the exposure, the experience that I've had. I mean, again, going back to Xena, I remember when I landed Mark Antony, and I thought, wow, that's a name, that's a role, that's and Xena's an American aired show, and it was a huge step in my career at that time. Then to work again with the same producer in Spartacus 10 years later was when I was able to launch into an international career. And from that came working with Peter Jackson, on The Hobbit, which was still in New Zealand. But so at that point I needed to I felt like it would be interesting to experience a show that was filming for America or in America. And I ended up landing Arrow, and that gave me international working experience. Then from Arrow, because I've got a family, I've got kids, I really wanted to go back home to be close to family. But once you start working at this upper level, working in New Zealand on local productions, you're not going to earn the same sort of money.
It's not comparable to working in the States.
But then Shannara Chronicles came up, and Shannara was shooting in New Zealand, and that was just perfect for me because I got to work on an American budget show. They actually flew me home. They paid to fly me back to New Zealand, and then I got to be, close to home and be with my kids and whatnot. So,
that's a great one.
So that was perfect. Now, Shannara just finished, last season, and we were released from it about 2 months ago. So new opportunities have just started to come in, and the next step is going to be interesting.
It's going to be interesting. Can I get any more insight on?
Well, there is one project that's like the New Zealand version of Vikings, going back in the Maori history. And, I'm already speaking with producers about that, but whether I end up doing it or not is really just still a studio and a producer level discussion. But that's sort of out there. And there's a couple more projects that are interesting. But yeah,
Interesting, okay.
I don't want to discuss them, but I've had a pretty good run so far. So I think, the next step is hopefully one that will help get me to that
Project
next
even
level.
further.
Yeah, step by step, brother.
So you said in the past that you would like to see more Polynesian stories told on the screen. How is that going for you so far?
It's. I mean, that's not something that's how's that going for me. It's how's that going for New Zealand Maori in general. I mean, I don't know what sort of situation you have here in Barbados, but of course, in every country, when you have a culture that's maybe underrepresented in terms of the amount of storytelling that's going on, then the big push now is really to get cultural stories told. For the industry to be inclusive. And this is happening slowly and slowly. And in New Zealand, we have this very strong Maori filmmaking, television making machine that's happening, and we've got lots of young Maori who are being qualified on cameras and lighting and sound and directing, screenwriting, producers. Taika Waititi has proven to be a formidable force now with Thor Ragnarok, and his career's can go in any direction now, and I'm certain that as a Maori, he's going to help feed that energy back into our indigenous, filmmaking process as well. We have wonderful actors like Cliff Curtis, who is also working hard to get Maori story produced. For me, I'm getting to a stage, maybe getting to a level where I can help in that contribution as well.
As a producer?
Well, I'm speaking with creatives in New Zealand about getting our stories told, and I was just part of a short film that's going to be going around doing the international sort of circuit. But that was a Maori story. Sometimes it's a little bit hard for me because I was raised abroad, so I don't speak the language.
Oh, okay.
I was raised in Australia. My father was one of these sort of musicians who took off young to perform in another country. My mother was from Australia, so we kind of we were brought up there. So, but as a good Maori friend of mine said, just lift up your tongue, which I think is a great saying.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's plenty of people who are from Barbados or from the Caribbean who are taken abroad as kids and come back
and come with a different accent.
Wait up, man! I'm home. I'm home now. I feel this, Yeah. So but there's definitely a strong element of Maori filmmaking starting to come through.
Yeah, but would you be personally down to start your own production company to bring that to life quicker?
Look, I'd be happy to contribute in any way that I could. Even if you're experienced or had as many years in the industry as I have, it's not as easy as just throwing on another hat.
Yeah.
But it mostly has to do with getting involved with the people who are doing it. You know what I mean? Like some of my friends there that are directors and writers and that, they're saying, Manu, if you want to get some of those ideas, come to a round table with us. Because we know the people who are having those conversations. The same could probably be said here in Barbados. If you guys are going to make local production, you got to get together as a team and say like, hey, it's our blood, it's what we're interested in. Let's get it done. And then you go looking for the money. These are the things that are starting to happen in New Zealand, on our indigenous front. But it's only as strong as the people that are involved and as committed as we are. It needs commitment. It's like having Bassa, the statue of Bassa.
Yeah.
But he's got like film reels on his hands.
Film reels. Whoa.
We need story. We need our story too, not just freedom from chains. We need story. We need to be told about. Yeah.
Switching gears a bit, you seem to have a very fond relationship with the country Greece, and we even saw you won the Medal of Marathon.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit about that honor?
Yeah, look, when I first went to Greece, I saw the structure of civilization, really, like democracy, medicine, philosophy, mathematics, all of these things that kind of like were attributed to this country. Then I saw this country that was in despair, financial ruin, really. And I met people who were actively involved in trying to change some of the oppressed situation in Greece. There's a lot going on in Greece. I mean, there's a lot politically and with the people that's completely disparate. The people don't trust the government acting outside of the people's decisions with referendums. There's a referendum held that the people voted against, and the Prime Minister walked into the room with a whole bunch of heavyweights from the EU and walked out and defied the people their democratic right, and should have been put into prison for that.
Really should have
But the Greek people have been, a picture has been painted of Greece that's completely unfair. I mean, I speak to European people and they go, "Oh, Greece are all lazy, and they were retiring at 50." And if you go to Greece, there's just a bunch of people working really, really hard. Around Greece, normal people, just like you walk around Barbados and you sort of see them. I've heard Barbados's debt is massive. But you walk out in the street and there's a whole bunch of people that are just walking around. They haven't any money. They're just working daily, in the grind. So how did that all happen? And how are the people out there, the ones that are getting taxed and being treated as though they're from a.
You don't know the half of it.
Yeah, I don't know the half of it. Well, exactly. I do know the half of it because I know the same thing's going on in Greece.
Yeah, exactly.
Or some Eastern European countries as well. And it's really just the big man's game. You know what I mean? It's the big man's game, and it's obvious. And so, I was just given the opportunity by some people to go around and hear the stories and find out a bit more about what was going on in Greece. And it's really moved me. It's really moved me. Unfortunately, the fires that just happened over there, that all happened in Marathon, which is the area which I'm very akin to, and got the Medal of Marathon from the mayor there and stuff like that. So I know those people very well, and I had coffee and visited Rafina a bunch of times. And to think that whole town was burnt to the ground, I haven't been able to get back. I wanted to jump on a plane straight away and go back there, because I know a lot of my friends were part of the search teams, uncovering the bodies of that in that fire and things like that, and they were crying over the phone to me and stuff like that. And I just I feel very deeply for that situation in Greece. But I as an actor, I've been, the way that I got to Greece was I was invited there by some people who were fans of Spartacus and wanted me to attend a Greek sort of arena battle. It was kickboxing, but they were pretending as though they were gladiators. The whole event was like a Roman arena or a Greek arena, and so that enabled me to get there. And then I learned these stories, and then I became heavily invested in that. The same in Iceland. I'm really heavily invested in writing a film there with a young writer from one of the islands off the south coast of Iceland. Iceland's a wonderful example of a country that hasn't been tarnished from the outside world, and they were in the same situation as Greece, actually. The EU tried to take a move on them, and they said no. And they had a referendum, and the people said no. And then the EU went and put pressure on their government, and the government tried to turn the vote over on the people. And the whole people stormed the presidential palace in Reykjavik and said no. We said no, and they made them stick to that. And Iceland, in that regard, is like so far ahead of because of that choice.
Yeah.
Autonomous, and a great country, But just the opportunities I get to travel and see the world. I've only been here for a little bit in Barbados, but I'm sure that I'm here for a week. I'm sure that by the end of the week, I'm hoping to meet Gabby.
That is so strange.
I so want to meet Gabby. Gabby, because when I walked out of the airport, I saw a big poster of him, and underneath it said, "What all this talk about culture?" Is that what the song's called?
It's not. I don't think that's what the song is called, but I know the poster you're referring to.
It's something like that. It's on my, but it says something like, what is this talk about culture? And I want to know what that means. I want to know what that's.
I'm sure that will be I'm sure you'll be arranged to meet Gabby,
because that's a really resonant comment.
Yeah.
And I walk out basically walk off the plane into the air. The first thing that I saw was Gabby up on the wall, and I was like, I've got to meet this guy.
Yeah, he used to be a minister of culture, actually.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah. He's he knows what's going on. So I'd love to talk to him. Yeah, I'd love to meet him.
All right, this has been Manu Bennett.
Yeah.
Did I get it right?
Yeah, Manu.
Didn't butcher it. This is Kobe Jones for ZEITGEIST.com, ZEITGEIST Entertainment Magazine, AnimeKon 2018. See you next time.
You know what? I've heard about flying fish.
Yeah.
You got flying,
Flying fish, yeah.
And you had got flying mangoes.
Flying mangoes, haven't quite heard of it, but
We practiced that.
That's one of the ones I